What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tsla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down some important structures we're seeing on the charts that are developing, what you should be watching for data and news. But before I begin the devil's information, before I get into any more details, let me mention two things. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Weeble and deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks. This offer ends very soon, in just about 4 days from now. Anyways, for SPY, we're seeing a new structure that's developing. So basically, in my video from yesterday, we were getting some signals that SPY would push a little higher. And that is what happened. We actually pushed all the way up to about just under 547 during the pre-market session. And I told everyone, once this thing pushes up, you have to watch and see, do we break 547? If we broke that, this could start pushing higher. If we rejected off 547 or just under that, we'd be looking for a big move back down. And what happened? We got this rejection off 547 so far. SPY is showing some weakness right here. And that's one of the possibilities we were talking about after getting a little pump. I told you, don't turn too bullish, don't turn too bearish either. Just watch the price action. Now we're starting to see some signs of weakness on the chart despite the pump we saw earlier. So the question is, what's going to happen from here? What is my personal opinion, at least, about this? Just to be very frank, today at about 10 o'clock a.m., we have new home sales. Today is Wednesday, June 26th. By the way, we have new home sales. Kind of minor data, might not affect the market too much, but we have some bill auctions at 11:30 a.m. for the 17-week and also the 2-year note auction. This might cause some volatility, but besides that, everything else is quite minor. For news about the market was continuing to post gains on Tuesday, ending 3 days of declines, but we're continuing to dip right now, at least during this pre-market session. On top of this, FedEx had its earnings. They did relatively well. They beat on EPS and revenue, and EPS of $5.94 with revenue of $22 billion. That's above expectations with decent guidance overall. VW is shifting into high gear with EV startup Rivian, and now it's going to be taking a $1 billion stake in the startup and is planning to establish a joint venture, which is very, very good news for both of these companies. That's part of why Rivian was up quite a bit. And then home prices in the US are hitting another record, rising 6.3% in the US compared to what we saw last April. That's what we just saw in April. So a lot of interesting headlines, at least for now, at least for the markets. Now let's just focus on the charts. What do I see kind of playing out right here? So I'm going to be a little bit cautious with SPY because we have a head and shoulders like structure right here. And I think that 543 is going to be a very important support. That was the support we saw from Monday. If we lose that support, I see SPY dipping down to this 50 EMA around 541. And if we manage to break out, watch 544 as resistance and then 545, which is where we happen to have this imbalance. If we break 545, we could turn right back up and start pushing again. But overall, just know that there's a little weakness considering that there's a head and shoulders like structure on SPY that's developing. And this could actually lead to more downside later. That's actually looking a bit more probable. Now, when I zoom into the 1 hour time frame, you guys can see the downside is still there, and there is still some weakness on this chart. It's still at risk of dipping down to about the 541s. So there is a risk of downside that I'm seeing, especially thanks to the head and shoulders. And we'll just have to see how things progress from here. But just be very mindful that we have that gap at 537. There's a risk of us coming down to fill it. And I'm seeing a weakness on SPY at least thus far. Now, what else is contributing to the weakness we're seeing is Nvda. Nvda pumped quite a bit yesterday, trying to rebound, only to reject. I called 130 yesterday, and we did go up to 130. We actually hit that during the pre-market, and then I told you to watch and see, do we break past 130 to start flying, or do we reject off of it? We got the rejection so far, and we're below with the 125 support. So that's actually a sign of weakness. If we broke past 125, we could have pushed higher. Because we lost that, there's going to be a good chance of this dipping lower all the way down towards 122. So I'm seeing some downside potential right over here. For Bitcoin's also kind of rejecting right over here, at least on the 1 hour time frame. Actually, I'm going to pull up the 4 hour just to kind of show this to you. So on the 4 hour, Bitcoin's rejecting off our 20 EMA. I'm seeing some weakness right here. There's an imbalance to fill over here around 60,200. I think Bitcoin will most likely come down and fill that imbalance. For Tesla, you guys can see this thing was pushing very nicely towards this 188 area, but just be careful because we have some tough resistance here. If we break past 188, we'll be looking for 190. And if that breaks, we could turn very bullish and start pushing out. If we fail to break 188, we could be retracing back down to 185, then 183. As of right now, we're kind of shuffling around the 187 area, but I do see a risk of us retesting 185 and kind of coming back up and continuing to consolidate. So I'll be watching for that on Tesla. For the QQQ, we have an inverse cup and handle like structure that's starting to develop right here. So I think that we have to try to get back above 479 to start pushing higher. We did reach 482. That was my target from yesterday. We did reach that in the pre-market only to reject. So if it continues to fall, I'll be looking for 475 as our next targets. I'm seeing some weakness, at least for now. For Apple's trying to rebound it, but we're still trading sideways around this 210 area. Watch 212 as resistance, 210 as support, and then if that fails, this 207 is coming. We're kind of shuffling right now on Apple. We have a very, very tight range, so we're likely going to maintain this range for now. For a few more, like Super Micro, we have a head and shoulders like structure. I did call this out earlier, and it's looking a little bit more bearish to me. So if we end up losing support around 820, I think we'll be dipping all the way down to not just 800, but also 780. For AMD, we're on a bit of a downtrend right here. We could actually dip lower towards 150 and just continue to consolidate. For Coinbase, we're looking a little bit weak right here. We managed to go all the way up to about 223. If we do break through that, then I'll be looking for the gap fill at 225. We came a little bit short so far. If we fail to break that resistance, I'll be looking for it to back down to 215. So it's showing some signs of weakness right now. Amazon's just kind of consolidating right here. We could dip lower towards 185.2. Then we could bounce off that, but I think it's just going to consolidate. For Meta, we're also showing some signs of rejection. If we fail to get back above 510, I'll be looking for a dip all the way down towards 505, eventually 503. So watch and see how that moves. Look for a little pop and drop like structure before we continue. I'll be watching that as well. For Microsoft is also on a nice uptrend right here. If we do reject here, we'll be dipping back down to 447.8 before we try to bounce. So look for a little dip and a bounce as the most likely possibilities. I'll give that some time. Google's starting to retrace right here. We do have this imbalance over here around 184. I think we could dip a little bit before anything else, and then we'll see if we bounce or not. But I'll be looking for a little dip on Google. For GameStop, we haven't broken past 26 yet to break out, so that's the reason why it's still kind of consolidating within its range. And AMC hasn't broken past 4.75 to turn bullish, so that's why we're also on a bit of a downtrend, still trading kind of sideways. So that being said, guys, we need to be very careful right now because the market's in a very, very critical place. We can see that SPY has this head and shoulders like structure. We'll see if this plays out or not. But make sure you watch 543. If we lose that, SPY will be dipping lower. And if we end up holding above it, I'll be watching 545. If we break through that, we could start pushing higher. Otherwise, we're stuck within this range. But considering that there is a head and shoulders, there is a risk of this dipping lower, in my opinion. So make sure you watch and see how well we hold 543. If we lose that, I think we're going to be tipping down to 541.6. We're going to be making a new low, and I think SPY could dip even more. Overall, this trend, it looks like, just for now, we had this high here, we came down, made a lower high, came down, made a lower high. Lower highs and lower lows. It looks like it might dip lower. So just be careful and be very, very mindful of that. All right. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, guys. I'll see you guys in just a few hours, and peace out.